Okay, good morning, Linnea. It's so good to see you. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a beautiful day. You can probably hear the birds outside there.
I can. I told you before, I love your deck and it just seems so peaceful all the time.
Thank you. It's really great out here. Sometimes if my neighbors get loud, he works out in his wood shop a lot, so pardon that.
Oh, so that the birds can drown him out.
Hopefully.
So I just wanted to really reach out to you. You're just always such a great resource, and our conversations are just always so encouraging. So I love talking with you, and just really wanted to dive in. As we start to kind of go back to a new normal, so to speak. What does that look like for you?
Hmm. Well, I think this is such a unique time, and I think this is a question that we're all asking ourselves. And I know I've had so many conversations with people, and it's like we're in this transition from just where new information's almost coming in every day, and we're having every day to just respond and adapt and figure out how to almost survive. Now I feel like we're in this space of like, how do we re-enter, or how
Right.
do we try to reprocess what our new normal is going to look like? Because I don't think anyone really has the expectations that it's going to go back to exactly what it was in March, when we kind of came into this whole situation with COVID and with a crisis and everything that we've been going through. So I've been thinking about it a lot, on a lot of different levels. I think some things are just very maybe more work related. Some things are more personal related. Some things are maybe more spiritual related. So yeah, I mean, maybe we can just kind of tackle one of those things. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
just from a mindset is a good place to start. Is
Yeah.
like, what do we do with our minds? I guess that's what I've been thinking of. I know you and I had some conversation before, and we were talking about there crisis introduces you to yourself in a very
Yes.
unique way. It's like you wake
It
up,
could be good
especially,
or bad.
yeah, right. Every day you wake up and you're like, okay, what is today going to look like? And you don't know. And so it's almost like those, when life normally carries us by its momentum or by our calendars or just our activities or routines, we're just shaken up out of it. So
Right.
then, so then we kind of almost are our most pure self, I think. And
Yeah.
like you said, that can be for good or for bad. I think that is a very
Absolutely.
good thing. But I always think that it's so helpful to be self-aware, especially in these seasons, because anything that is maybe some of the bad is really usually, I think, are good overdone.
Right.
It- it's the area that's normally our strength, but when we've relied on it in too heavily, um, just kind of exposed in its rawest form, it can have the adverse effect of maybe other people experiencing us in a way that's not healthy.
Right.
So I know that what I've been trying to do is just what is the quote? I'll probably get it wrong. Um, but Carl Jung, he's a famous psychiatrist and was part of the Jungian psychology that kind of birthed out a lot of the what is Myers-Briggs and some of those types of things. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Ooh,
So isn't that good?
that's a good one. Yeah.
And that's I think what I was getting to is that normally we live kind of accidentally, just on default. It's just
Mhm.
whatever's on our schedule, whatever's our routine, whatever is our predictable pattern is just kind of what we do. And we have moments of mindfulness, but for the most part, we're just doing life. And
Yep.
then things catch up to us and we see this reality sometimes and we're just like, well, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And
And in
it,
hindsight, you saw it coming.
yeah, or we don't take the time to reverse engineer it
Yeah.
and say, especially if it keeps happening, those same types of things keep happening over and over in our life. Like I know for me, I have certain things that really are never an issue for me, and I wonder why they are sometimes for other people, but they're never a problem for me. Usually the issues I have, the times when I have my own times that I'm just like, oh my gosh, why did I do that again? It's always the same things over and over. It's not like a
Right.
new bad habit. It's just the same
Right.
bad habits. So taking the time to reverse engineer, I think this is a unique season that we can do that. We
Right.
can literally say, what are my tendencies? And when I'm especially under pressure or I feel like things are out of my control, what default behaviors do I have? And what outcomes does that lead to? You know?
Yes. And sometimes those can be very eye-opening and a little hard to swallow.
They can be, but you can do that process in the things, I think, in a really affirming way too, because
Right.
in the things that are your strengths, it's the same thing. It's like, well, what are my tendencies? So I know, like, from a strength, before I'll tell on myself with my weaknesses too. I always do, but like I'm a very good collaborator. I love to collaborate. I love to help people solve for problems that they have and help them kind of connect with a greater good kind of situation.
Right.
That's a tendency that I have, is to really kind of try to connect people to that greater good. But then on when that action looks like collaboration a lot of times. So I'm a
Right.
great player, which means that then I get invited to help solve with teams a lot of problems. And I love that part of my life. On default though, the almost that strength overdone means that sometimes that process of solving problems or doing the work that I do, I tend to over identify who I am with what I do. And
Okay.
so when that thing that I'm doing is all shaken up like it is right now, like what does this look like for my job or in my role as a parent, or, I can almost start to feel like my identity is rocked. So then I can start to try to prove myself too much. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I've over identified what I do with who I am. And so I think for me, just going through that engineering process of kind of looking around, there's a tool that I use in the work I do. It's called Know Yourself to Lead Yourself. And
Okay.
it's represented with an infinity loop like this, because we're
Okay.
all on this like loop of self-awareness and growing, right? So the more I can become aware of what my tendencies are and do that process where I work it around, then when I'm kind of confronted with why am I getting resistance on the other side of me, well, maybe it's because I go back to that tendency. I'm over identifying. When somebody rejects something I've done, one of my
Right.
ideas or a project I'm doing, I take it personally, and then they're just like, why is she so defensive? It's not about
Right.
that.
Right.
So I can reverse engineer that and get back to myself. And it's so empowering, really,
Yeah.
because just because it's a tendency doesn't mean that has to own me every day of my life. And
Right.
so I'll just look at this season of life, for me anyway, as just one where I'm just going, I've got margin to do this more intentionally than I normally do with
Right.
my crazy busy schedule.
Yeah.
So what about
No,
you?
that makes perfect sense. No, I definitely, I love what you said about re-entry. Like that's such a good phrase and a good way to really look at this. Telling on myself, I definitely, this has been one of those where you have to look at, who you really are comes out when you're put under pressure or when you're put out of your comfort zone. And some people thrive with that and some people don't. And I feel like I'm kind of right there in the middle. I've definitely handled some things with grace. And then there's been a couple of things that not so much grace. But like you said, kind of learning to see where your strong points are and what are the things that you really don't like about yourself, and recognizing those things and then thinking about what you can do to make changes with those things to make it better going forward. But the reentry was something that we had talked about before, and just in the community, how everybody is going to have a different view of what that's going to look like. You might be concerned about something that I'm not as concerned about, or vice versa. And just really having respect for one another and having understanding and compassion for one another, having a little bit of grace, and I know the Swanee community specifically is so great about that. And I hope that we're able to continue with that. You've always been such a resource for, things of that nature. What do you see coming? Do you have any resources that you could offer?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel so grateful to be able to live this journey. I think I was just telling you that I've lived, as a realtor, get to check out houses and all this stuff. I've lived in my house for 22 years. And so I truly believe that I've grown up with this community. When I moved here to Swanee in 1998, it looked very different than it does now. There was Kroger and Publix were there and a couple neighborhoods, but outside of that, it was, Town Center Park wasn't there. It's hard to believe that. And I remember seeing the trees get cut down for that. And I was just like, why are they cutting down those trees?
Yes.
It was change, right? And I was like, why would they do that? Or George Pierce Park was here, but behind my house, there's like a big trail. It's part of the big trail network. And that wasn't there. And when they were putting it there, I just immediately was afraid. I was like, what if somebody comes up off the trail and comes to my house? So I think anytime there's change, there's just this community reaction of like, oh no, what's going to happen? And so I think we're all feeling this very acutely right now, just knowing that we're not going to go back to how things were. But how things were, I think there's such an opportunity during this reentry, where how things weren't perfect anyway. And while there's, I think, a lot of, where we can do this whole self-discovery process, I think hopefully, and I truly believe this for most people, that we're learning more compassion and empathy for people. Because like you said, all of us, I think, and I think it can sometimes fluctuate from hour to hour. You can feel so strong and then you feel like you're lose it.
Yes.
You could have so much faith one minute, for me, my faith is important. So oh my gosh, God is with me. He sees me and he sees this, this pain that my finances are going through right now as a result of this. Or what are we going to do on the other side? And I could just completely feel like I've lost all control and all faith, and so it can fluctuate. And I just think, like you said, copious amounts of grace, and just that kind of, linking arms with people, obviously not physically, but just choosing what to look at, choosing what to turn your attention to. Because you and I both know, I mean, if we want to spend all day looking at the news or looking at the rhetoric on Facebook or any of these other things, it can be really disheartening.
I know, very overwhelming.
And I'm an optimist. I always believe the best about people. And I remember when this whole thing first started a couple months ago, and I thought, well, good, we have a common enemy. Now we could come together and fight this common enemy, because it's a virus. It's not any one of us. You didn't cause COVID. I didn't. Even the president didn't, or the business. Nobody caused it. It's a virus. And so we can all fight it together. Yay, let's link arms. That's kind of my rainbows and unicorns world that I love. I can. And then as the weeks go on, depending on what you're diverting or putting your attention to, it can feel like exactly the opposite is happening. People continue to take up positions, and they take up their weapons and they just fight each other. And that's not to say that we can't and shouldn't have different opinions and approaches on how to kind of navigate through this, how to reenter, how to solve the problems, the very real problems that we have, both from a health perspective, from a freedom perspective, and from a financial perspective and economic perspective. So, but I do think that we can do it together. And I do think, I always remember Mr. Rogers. He, you're a little too young, but I watched Mr. Rogers growing up.
I watched Mr. Rogers.
You watched Mr. Rogers? Okay. But I know you're a lot younger than me, so you were for a few months. But I watched Mr. Rogers OG.
There you go. That might be better.
He said when he was young, and I think this was during World War II, and he would watch the news and everything would scare him. And he would tell his mom, "This scares me. This world is so scary." And she said, "Look for the helpers." And I think he's famous for that quote, "Look for the helpers." Yeah. And so as far as resources, you're talking about resources. Yes, absolutely. When you look for the helpers, you almost just, it drowns out. It has the ability to drown out all that combative fighting that's going on in the world. And so that's where I choose to focus my time and attention,
Right.
is not only looking for the helpers, but hopefully being a helper where I can. And I know, my pastor, Andy Stanley, he says, do for one what you wish you could do for all.
Right.
Because that could be overwhelming in and of itself when there's so much
It
need.
can.
How can we help everybody? And we just
Right.
can't. And we all have
Right.
different abilities, different capacities in different ways to help. So I have a few resources that I was thinking about as we were getting ready to do this call, just thinking that whomever might watch this conversation that you and I are having might just have different things they're interested in, or ways or abilities that they might want to help,
Absolutely.
I think some of the ways that we've seen, which have been great and are still needed, are just people that want to, if you have the ability to sew, I do not. I mean, that mask making has just been a huge, a great thing that I think people have been able to do. My daughter Madison, she just graduated from the University of Georgia, but
Yep.
she has a little side business where she makes t-shirt quilts for people, and she's doing a couple now for graduation gifts. They're really great. People give her their t-shirts and she makes these amazing quilts from them. But she kind of put a hold on that for a little bit and started making masks. And she was able to donate, I think, over 100 masks to
Oh,
different
wow.
like Viewpoint Health, to Swanee PD, to Grady Hospital, to Northside. Like, it was awesome. And then the city of Swanee approached her and said, hey, we have an idea just to bring joy to people in our community at this time. What would you think about making masks for some of our sculptures in our public art
I
tour?
saw those. That was hysterical and just so like inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to smile sometimes
Right.
during
It just
and
makes you giggle when you walk by and see the three ladies.
it does. Oh my gosh. So that was such a fun project for her. She's like out there, like she's got a ladder out. She's measuring like this big old
Oh my
7 foot
God.
tall bird beak, and people are looking at her like, what is she doing?
Right. What are you doing?
But oh my gosh, she just was so creative with it, and it's fun. And it has just been so fun to just watch people smile and
Right.
bring them joy. So you can bring people joy. You can either do that through making masks or just enjoy the art, do things like that. There is a wonderful, wonderful website that is called WinnettCares.org. This
Okay.
thing, it is so incredible how this came together. It was literally the ultimate in collaboration. When all things started shutting down in mid-March, this group of community leaders, kind of spearheaded through the Community Foundation of Northeast Georgia, came together with members in the medical community, the education community, the chamber, the business community, and they immediately got this like almost one-stop shop for if you need help, if you want to provide help. And it was just this big way for people to go to one place, and it's been awesome.
Right.
And so in addition to raising money, and I can't remember, I know they've raised over $500,000 already. I know that
A
they're looking,
word.
I think, $1 million
Wow.
for their next benchmark. It's been amazing. So you have opportunities. If that's your way to help, do it. It's needed. It's so, so needed. And it goes to, they've already distributed over $500,000 to local nonprofits that are providing services to people right now.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And then volunteering is, again, another way that people help. So masks, do you make masks? Where would you give masks? That kind of thing. That's all on there. There's so many other ways to help, though. If you just are someone who has time, and maybe you don't have financial resources, maybe like a lot of us, you have been furloughed, or, in my work, I do a lot of in-person training with people, and obviously can't do that. So a lot of the things that I had planned have dried up from an income standpoint. But if you have time, you can go on there and you can say, I'm a volunteer, I have time, here's my skills. There are so many different things that are needed
Oh,
right now.
wow. That's great.
Yes, and they will reach out to you, and it's almost like a triage process of them going, okay, so what do you care about? What do
Right.
you know how to do? And what do you have to be able to do it with? Is it a
Right.
or resource? And it's all right there. One of the cool things that you can do is that there's the Medical Reserve Corps. This is a federal program. It's a volunteer program. And a lot of people think you have to be a medical professional to volunteer. You actually
Right.
don't.
Okay.
So the Medical Reserve Corps then has a division specifically in Georgia and in Gwinnett County. So it's through the Department of Health of, it's Gwinnett, Newton, and Rockdale County. And
Okay.
so you can either go on their website, the Department of Health, or look up the Gwinnett, Newton, Rockdale County, and I can't remember what the actual website is. I can give it all to you if you want to post it with this.
Yeah, for sure. Because
And
I think so many people want to get involved, and
yeah,
they want to help out. They just kind of get, like you said, there's such a need that it almost becomes overwhelming and you just don't even know where to
how to help.
start. So then you sit still.
Sure. Right. And they need people, the Medical Reserve Corps, like you've heard, I think a lot of people are starting to talk about what is this contact tracing, right?
Right.
A lot of that requires just sitting behind a computer or making some phone calls or doing things like that. And so they need help with that right now. There's just
Okay.
no way they can manage it on their own. And various other types of administrative or other things that you wouldn't need to have a medical degree or any sort of expertise in.
Okay.
And also for students, some of students especially that might be in pursuing nursing or physical therapy or pharmacy or something like that, there are medical focus volunteer opportunities as well, which has the added bonus of then being able to also help with your resume,
Right.
if you're a student, or
That's
looking to make a
fantastic.
career change potentially, because I think a lot
Right.
of people are going to be looking at that as well. So those would be some of the main things that I would say is GwinnettCares.org, the Medical Reserve Corps, and specifically here, if you live in Gwinnett, that would be a
Right.
great way to help. So yeah, so those are some things that you can
Awesome.
do. At a local level for the city of Suwanee, I guess I would just want to speak to kind of in the city of Suwanee. So I'm a council member for the city of Suwanee, and like everybody, the city financially we're experiencing some significant impacts
Right.
from this. And so there are certain things that we need to do. I look at it as like almost two buckets. There's the survive bucket and there's the thrive bucket. So we have to dedicate certain activities to survive. And I don't
Right.
think that we're by any means out of the woods for that yet.
Right.
We're actually in that. And then there's the thrive bucket, which is what do we do now to ensure that our organizations or our business or just even ourselves, that we can thrive on the other side of this, right?
Right.
That we can re-enter stronger.
Yes.
So from the city of Suwanee, last night we had our first in-person workshop that we've had since mid-March, and we were there until 11 o'clock at night.
Oh my goodness, you guys do so much to just keep the city going and always having things, for all of the citizens.
Our staff is amazing. Really, we can't take credit as elected officials, because the staff really has been working day to day. They wake up every single day thinking about what we can do. And so,
Right.
yes, we are looking at budget cuts, just like every organization is across our entire organization. And some of those things are going to be a little bit, painful. Some of it feels more personally painful, because like projects that, personally I've been really excited about and looking forward to. 2020 is like our best year ever. I think everybody started almost in, kind of in this like 2020 has the ability to be our best year ever,
Yes.
And then it's like, oh, what happened? It might be our worst year ever financially. But I think all of these things will be better on the other side of it.
Yeah.
They just might have to be delayed or might have to look a little bit different. So
Right.
Super excited starting 2020 with our public art capital campaign. We're pressing a big pause button on that. The last thing we're going to do right now is go out and ask people to give money for public art, though it's incredibly important, but not for right now in survive mode.
It's just on hold.
Just on hold. And even with our park, we're going to have to be our new park that we're getting ready to build. We just need to make sure we can do it in a quality way. And we don't want to compromise that for the community. So it might look a little different, the rollout on it, but we're working through all those decisions. But we are really committed to doing what we can to preserve those essential services that the community
Awesome.
really needs. And also, I think we're looking at how can we help businesses. So we've put together a task force that's actually a small business task force, looking for ways that the city of Swanee can come along. And we look at kind of a lot of this relief that we're getting from the federal government
Right.
as just that, is relief, right? It's like, keep us from bleeding out, you know?
Right.
But as we transition to this reentry phase, to this reopening phase, what does it look like to bring support alongside of particularly our small businesses in the city of Swanee, which we value so much, and just bring them meaningful support in little ways that can help them remove barriers to getting their doors open again, or
Right.
getting that engine, moving again. So
Yeah.
we've got a great task force of people that's already spent a lot of time in these last couple of months, and we're getting close to being able to talk about some things that I think will be um, hopefully really helpful and beneficial to our business community, because that's a
That
big,
is super exciting. Super
yeah,
exciting.
we're really
Um,
excited about that.
well, I really, really appreciate all of the information that you have shared with us. Like I said before, every time you and I either meet for lunch or just talk on the phone, I feel like when I leave the conversation, I've just gained so much insight and just leave it with a feeling of peace. So I really appreciate you always taking the time to talk with me. And I appreciate your time today, just kind of sharing with all of us some resources that I feel like all of us need. And again, just having that encouraging conversation.
Well, Ashley, I want to thank you, because just since I met you, you are such an intentional person. I think that you you are not only a talented businesswoman, but I think that your heart for serving your clients and really making a meaningful impact in this community shows. And
Thank you.
that's why I'm always so encouraged every time that we get to connect. Hopefully it's going to be in person again very
I
soon.
know.
Yeah,
I'm
so
hoping
thank
with everything opening up, we get some coffee soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even if we have to kind of like spread out and
Sit outside. It's nice
sit
weather coming
outside,
up, so we can do that.
but hey, I'm ready for that for sure. So
Me
I just
too.
thank you for all you do for our city and for our community.
I really appreciate it, Linnea. Thank you so, so much. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you later, Ashley. Bye
Bye.
bye.